So today I got a phone call from a very nice elderly woman, and she said to me, "Do you know anything about real estate investing?" And I said to her, "Where'd you get my name and number?" "I looked you up in Google and I found you." I said, "Great, how can I help you?" She said, "Well, I want to cancel my contract with the investor who's buying my property." Well, believe it or not, this is not an uncommon question. How do I cancel my contract? Oftentimes investors will get a higher offer. They call me up and they say, "How can I get out of my contract? I got more money coming in if I can do it, blah, blah, blah." When we used to wholesale, oftentimes we would strike a deal with a buyer, let's say for $20,000 or $30,000 profit. Somebody would come in and offer us a $50,000 or more profit on the deal. What we typically would do is go back to the investor we had it under contract with and say to him, "Have an offer for you." What we do is try and split the difference with him on the overage that we were getting on the second offer, in effect buy him out of the contract. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I said to her, "Tell me more about what you're trying to do." And she said, "Well, I don't like this investor. He misled me, he did this, he did that." I said to her, "Did you sign the contract?" And she said, "Yes, I signed the contract." And I said, "Well, tell me more about it." She said, "Well, I have a property I'm selling to him for $400,000 is what we agreed upon. And I found out that he listed it on the MLS for $480,000. So I said to her, "Is it a multifamily, single family home? What is it?" She said, "It's a single family home that I rent for $2,000 a month." So just a quick calculation, $2,000 a month on a $400,000 property after expenses. We're talking about a cap rate of like 5%, somewhere in that range. Not a high cap rate. And what must have happened is the investor went in and said, "I'm going to resell it as a single family home." At any rate, it was under contract. And I said to her, "You signed the contract, so he has a valid contract." Now, I'm not an attorney. I don't want to look at the contract. I'm just saying you would have to defend yourself in court if you did it. And she said, "Oh, yeah." He came back to me and said, "If you don't perform, come to closing, I'm going to file a lis penens." Now, believe it or not, that was kind of music to my ears. And the reason is for the last 25 years, I've been telling people that we file a lis penens, so on and so forth, do a foreclosure on a property, get the property back. I've given tons of examples in my videos. And all I hear in the drumbeat on the other side is you can't file a lis penens unless you have a mortgage. Well, I'm telling you guys, I've had judges tell me that. And until we educate them, they're staunch on a lis penens equals a mortgage. Not true. But nonetheless, I went forward with her and I said, "Okay, tell me more about what happened." He came to me and said he'd pay $400,000, close in 90 days. Okay, here's the first flag, 90 days. Great. And he must have either gotten a listing agreement or he got a power of attorney to list the property on the MLS, or probably went through a flat fee listing agent who wasn't as, I want to say, cautious about who the owner was in terms of can you list it on the MLS. Nonetheless, it was listed on the MLS for $480,000. So he was trying to make a $80,000 profit on her transaction with no money in the deal. And I said to her, "How much of an earnest money deposit did he give?" And she said, "Well, the deal was he'd put up the earnest money deposit on closing. So he had no money in the transaction. If he didn't list it himself or he had a flat fee listing person do it, he did have a small amount of money invested in whatever the cost was. Flat fee listing agents typically charge $195 to maybe $495. I said to her, "Well, you have a contract, and frankly, the price is pretty darn good because I don't know anybody that would be paying that." Now, I'm saying that to her based on what the rental income was. She was selling it as a rental. But oftentimes, selling that single-family home as a single-family home will bring much more money than selling it as a rental. The concept that the iBuyers and some of the hedge funds have been doing now, where they're accumulating thousands of properties, is they buy them to rent them, and catch a rising real estate market, and then sell them out as single-family homes because you can simply get more money for them. So as we left, one of the other questions I had was, so it was 90 days on the contract. How long has it been since you signed the contract? She said, "Oh, 60 days. I said, "If it's already been 60 days, two things. First of all, you might as well wait until the contract expires. And the other thing I want to mention to her, or you can already see that it's not worth $480,000 or you would have sold it." And then she said to me, well, I have the tenant in there, and he told me that by closing, the tenant had to be out. So now I've gotten the tenant riled up that he's going to get out, and I'm not getting an answer back from the investor, probably because the investor hasn't been able to sell it. So what's the point of this particular comment I'm making? He's using a program that works for him. He goes in, gets it under contract, 90 days, literally overpays for it with the intent he's going to make $20, $40, $60, $80,000, whatever it happens to be. But he really has no money in the transaction, not even an earnest money deposit. So for you guys out there who are talking about, well, you can't do that, or I can't do it, if you can't do it, it doesn't mean it can't be done. Ultimately, what I said to the little old lady, it was very kind, let him buy it if he can. If not, get another tenant because you're already chasing the tenant out. And we left on great terms. I couldn't help her more than to say that. But there should be some tips in here about how you can do some of these things. For example, if you're struggling with getting more than 5 or 7 or 15 days inspection, here's a guy that got 90 days. How did he do that? He simply asked. In closing, ask and you shall receive. I'm Dave Dinkle. I wish you limitless success in all that you do.